I must be very deliberate now and choose my words. After plowing down a few steps, amidst the gnawed bones, we saw that there was light ahead. Not any mystic phosphorescence, but a filtered daylight which could not come except from unknown fissures in the cliff that overlooked the vast valley. That such fissures had escaped notice from outside was hardly remarkable. For not only is the valley wholly uninhabited, but the cliff is so high and beetling that only an aeronaut could study its face in detail. A few steps more, and our breaths were literally snatched from us by what we saw. So literally that Thornton, the psychic investigator, actually fainted in the arms of the dazed man who stood behind him. Norris, his plump face utterly white and flabby, simply cried out inarticulately, whilst I think that what I did was to gasp or hiss and cover my eyes. The man behind me, the only one of the party, older than I, croaked the hackneyed, "My God!" in the most cracked voice I ever heard of 7 cultivated men. Only Sir William Brenton retained his composure, a thing more to his credit, because he led the party and must have seen the sight first. It was a twilit grotto of enormous height, stretching away farther than any eye could see, a subterraneous world of limitless mystery and horrible suggestion. There were buildings and other architectural remains, and one terrified glance I saw a weird pattern of tumuli, a savage circle of monoliths, a low-domed Roman ruin, a sprawling Saxon pile, and an early English edifice of wood. But all these were dwarfed by the ghoulish spectacle presented by the general surface of the ground. For yards above the steps extended an insane tangle of human bones, or bones at least as human as those on the steps. Like a foamy sea they stretched, some fallen apart, but others wholly or partly articulated as skeletons, these latter invariably in postures of demoniac frenzy, either fighting off some menace or clutching other forms with cannibal intent. When Dr. Trask, the anthropologist, stooped to classify the skulls, he found a degraded mixture which utterly baffled him. They were mostly lower than the Piltdown man in the scale of evolution, but in every case definitely human. Many were of higher grade, and a very few were the skulls of supremely and sensitively developed types. All the bones were gnawed, mostly by rats, but somewhat by others of the half-human drove. Mixed with them were many tiny bones of rats, fallen members of the lethal army which closed the ancient epic. I wonder that any man among us lived and kept his sanity through that hideous day of discovery. Not Hoffman or Huysmans could conceive a scene more widely incredible, more frenetically repellent, or more gothically grotesque than the twilit grotto through which we 7 staggered, each stumbling on revelation of the revelation, and trying to keep for the nonce from thinking of the events which must have taken place there 300 years, or 1,000, or 2,000, or 10,000 years ago. It was the antechamber of hell, and poor Thornton fainted again when Trask told him that some of the skeleton things must have descended as quadrupeds through the last 20 or more generations. Horror piled on horror, as we began to interpret the architectural remains. The quadruped things, with their occasional recruits from the biped class, had been kept in stone pans, out of which they must have broken in their last delirium of hunger or rat fear. There had been great herds of them, evidently fattened on the coarse vegetables whose remains could be found as a sort of pale poisonous ensilage at the bottom of huge stone bins older than Rome. I knew now why my ancestors had had such excessive gardens. Would to heaven I could forget. The purpose of the herds I did not have to ask. Sir William, standing with his searchlight in the Roman ruin, translated aloud the most shocking ritual I have ever known, and told of the diet of the antediluvian cult, which the priests of Sibyl found and mingled with their own. Norris, used as he was to the trenches, could not walk straight when he came out of the English building. It was a butcher shop and kitchen. He had expected that, but it was too much to see familiar English implements in such a place, and to read familiar English graffiti there, some as recent as 1610. I could not go in that building whose daemon activities were stopped only by the dagger of my ancestor Walter de la Pere. What I did venture to enter was the low Saxon building whose oaken door had fallen, and there I found a terrible row of 10 stone cells with rusty bars. 3 had tenants, all skeletons of high grade, and on the bony forefinger of one I found a searing with my own coat of arms. Sir William found a vault with far older cells below the Roman chapel, but these cells were empty. Below them was a low crypt with cases of formerly arranged bones, some of them bearing terrible parallel inscriptions carved in Latin, Greek, and the tongue of Phrygia. Meanwhile, Dr. Trask had opened one of the prehistoric tumuli and brought to light skulls, which were slightly more human than a gorilla's, and which bore indescribable idiographic carvings. Through all this horror, my cat stalked unperturbed. Once I saw him monstrously perched atop a mountain of bones, and wondered at the secrets that might lie behind his yellow eyes. Having grasped to some slight degree the frightful revelations of this twilight area, an area so hideously foreshadowed by my recurrent dream, we turned to that apparently boundless depth of midnight cavern where no ray of light from the cliff could penetrate. We shall never know what sightless Stygian worlds yawn beyond the little distance we went, for it was decided that such secrets are no good for mankind. But there was plenty to engross us close at hand, for we had not gone far before the searchlight showed that accursed infinity of pits in which the rats had feasted, and whose sun lack of replenishment had driven the ravenous rodent army first to turn on the living herds of starving things, and then to burst forth from the prairie in that historic orgy of devastation, which the peasants will never forget. God, those carrion black pits of sword, picked bones, and opened skulls, those nightmare chasms choked with the pithecanthropoid, Celtic, Roman, and English bones of countless unhallowed centuries. Some of them were full, and none can say how deep they had once been. Others were still bottomless to our searchlights, and peopled by unnameable fancies. What I thought of the hapless rats that stumbled into such traps amidst the blackness of their quests in this grisly Tartarus. Once my foot slipped near a horribly yawning brink, and I had a moment of ecstatic fear. I must have been musing a long time, for I could not see any of the party but the plump Captain Norris. Then there came a sound from that inky, boundless, farther distance that I thought I knew, and I saw my old black cat dart past me like a winged Egyptian god, straight into the illimitable gulf of the unknown. But I was not far behind, for there was no doubt after another second. It was the eldritch scurrying of those fiend-born rats, always questing for new horrors and determined to lead me on even unto those grinning caverns of earth's center where Nyarlathotep, the mad, faceless god, howls blindly till the piping of two amorphous idiot flute plays. My searchlight expired, but still I ran. I heard voices and yells and echoes, but above all, there gently rose that impious, insidious scurrying, gently rising, as the stiff, bloated corpse gently rises above an oily river that flows under endless onyx bridges to a black, putrid sea. Something bumped into me. Something soft and plump. It must have been the rats, the viscous, gelatinous, ravenous army that feast on the dead and the living. Why shouldn't rats eat a Delapeur as a Delapeur eats forbidden things? The war ate my boy, damn them all, and the Yanks at ate Carfax with flames and burned Grand Sir Delapeur and the secret. No, I tell you, I'm not that daemon swineherd in the twilit grotto. It was not Edward Norris' fat face on that flabby fungus thing. Who says I'm a Delapeur? He lived, but my boy died. Shall the Norris hold the lands of a Delapeur? It's voodoo, I tell you. That spotted snake. Curse you, Thornton! I will teach you to faint at what my family do. Splat, thou stinkard, I learn ye how to gust. Wold ye swink me thilke-wise? Magna mater, artis, dia ad agarites, ad aodon, agus, bas, dunach ord, donas ord, agus leat sa. Ungel, hulp, chichu. That is what they say, I said, when they found me in the blackness after 3 hours, found me crouching in the blackness over the plump, half-eaten body of Captain Norris, with my own cat leaping and tearing at my throat. Now they have blown up Hexham Priory, taken my nigger man away from me, and shut me into this barred room at Henwell, with fearful whispers about my heredity and experiences. Thornton is in the next room, but they prevent me from talking to him. They are trying to suppress most of the facts concerning the Priory. When I speak of poor Norris, they accuse me of a hideous thing, but they must know that I did not do it. They must know it was the rats, the slithering, scurrying rats, whose scampering will never let me sleep, the daemon rats that race behind the padding in this room and beckon me down to greater horrors than I have ever known. The rats they can never hear, the rats The rats in the walls. And this is the end of the rats in the walls. Pretty exceptional story. So, as well as you know from the other stories I already loaded up for you and presented you, I'm quite interested in your opinion about the story, or whichever questions you pose. Just write them in the comments below, because someone will be able to answer this. I will try to interact with you, because interactivity is awesome, and you like interactivity, I like interactivity. If you don't like interactivity, I don't like you, and you don't like me, and then we will all die in a hellhole. So, please do something. Be a madman or learn Latin, cause it's a stupid language and it's stupid. So, and yeah, see you in the next story, which will be, as a matter of fact, the festival. Sounds happy. This will be a happy sunshine story, I guess, because H.P. Lovecraft loves to write lovely stories. Lovely stories about love and sunshine. See you then. Bye bye. No, I'm too close.